there's nobody on earth that isn't going to experience adversity in their life.
Correct.
And I honestly think it's a good thing. And when circling back to the parenting, that's why I've always let my kids know there's a safety net.
Right.
But I want them to know it's not right here all the time, but it's here.
Right.
I'll never let you fall to the ground, but you might sometimes fall.
Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys, the podcast of great conversations with men. I'm your host, Chris Foster, and here we are going to explore how we wear this beautiful and confusing mantle of manhood in the 21st century. Look, I get it. In public life, men can be knuckleheads, but in private life, we can be thoughtful and we can be reflective if we have the right conversation, if we feel comfortable telling our story. And I believe we all have a great story to tell. And other men can learn from these stories. We can learn about who we've been, we can think about who we are, and we can dream about who we want to be. And that's why we have these conversations, so we can learn from other men just like us. And today's conversation is a video and audio of my friend Mark. We call him the honey badger, which means he doesn't give a shit. He fights cobras. He goes into honeycombs and beehives and takes what he wants. But he's not aggressive or mean. What it means is that he has a fighting spirit. And it's a fighting spirit of optimism. It's a fighting spirit of, how can I make this day my day? And how can I make this day the best I can for me and everyone around me? How can I be the best that I can be today? How can I be the best father? How can I be the best partner? How can I be the best friend? How can I be the best salesperson? How can I be the best I can be? Can I be the best cook? Can I be the best domestic guy? Can I keep my house clean? All of it. But that doesn't come easy. It comes with work. It comes with practice. It comes with patience. And it doesn't mean that he hasn't had to overcome adversity. In fact, it's the overcoming of the adversity which has helped him be the man that he is. He's remarkable, a fantastic individual. We cover a lot of ground in terms of sonhood, being a primary caregiver, passing a mantle of manhood onto his own son, being a model of manhood for his daughter, and yes, dealing with adversity of heartbreak, cancer, and coming through that and still being a positive force in the world so that the world is better because of Mark. We're better for having him in our world, and for those who know him, for having him in our lives. Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys. Well, all right, Mark Bylock, welcome in.
Thank you, Chris Foster. Good to be here.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. I'm 64 years old. I've been out here in San Diego for 34 years. I work in the insurance business. As you know, I work for Aflac, and I have two wonderful children, 28 and 25.
It's a great place to start. So one of the things that I've experienced as my kids are now 24 and 26, as they move up into young adulthood, I have to be a different kind of parent. You know, I'm no longer actively parenting. I wouldn't even call it passively parenting. I'm trying to ask questions instead of, put down hard guidance, or I'm trying to stop with some of my you shoulds. Your kids are a bit older. Your oldest, 28, is really moving into not just young adulthood, but into adulthood. How has your parenting style changed, and what kind of parenting, if at all, do you think that you still do?
It's changed in the sense that the love and wanting to guide them is still there. But for me, I view them more as equals now. And they're making their own decisions. And I look to be more a sounding board when they come to me, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Because at a very young age, I think we built that trust level up with them. In the very, very beginning, one of the lessons that I always tried to teach my children was actions have consequences, both positive and negative. A lot of times when people hear that word consequence, they think of something negative. But things can also be, positive consequences. So I just tried to instill that in that every decision that you make along your journey, there's going to be some repercussion, and it can be a good one or it can be a bad one. And, laying that foundation, I think, pointed them in the right direction so that I don't have as much contact with them, obviously, because neither one of them live home. But I really feel blessed because I feel like they're both on really good paths and they have a really good understanding of, right and wrong. And it always feels good when they reach out and say, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? The latest example I can think of is Jordan called me up one time and said, hey, Dad, if you move your money over to SoFi Bank, you'll get 3.75%. 4.75% on a savings account. And I'm just like, oh my God,
fintech advice.
I'm great that they're thinking about things like that.
Sure, of course.
And when I teased her, I said, Jordan, I thought you were a hardline liberal, but here you are. You're basically a capitalist at heart.
Exactly.
But you have to do direct deposit, so it's not something I did. But yeah, they both did it. They rolled their money in there, and
yeah, it's fun to see them, make these adult decisions.
Yeah.
And you had talked about just how when they were younger. So since I know you, you were a primary caregiver for a really long time.
I was.
And, I guess one of the questions that I have as that is, you had a model with your own mom who was single mom, primary caregiver.
Correct.
So as you kind of went into that experience, how did you talk to your own mom about her experiences and try to draw parallels or lessons from what she did?
I don't think that was on my radar a lot with my mom. My parents got divorced when I was 2. So my mom basically raised all 4 of us. And the interesting thing was that, my dad was very well off. He really did right by her in the divorce. She got a lot of money for each kid and spousal support and everything else. But my mother had never even written a check at the time she got divorced. She didn't know how to do that. My dad would get a new Cadillac every 2 years. He was in the steel industry in Pittsburgh. And so my mother was very undereducated in life, where all of a sudden she found herself with a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So she's always been kind of my personal hero. The fact that she was able to raise us and I think do a really good job. My siblings are all great people. And I learned skill sets from my mother. I learned to cook. I learned to do my laundry. I learned to take care of myself. She would date people and sometimes she would go away for a weekend or 2, not when I was 8, but when I was 15 or 16. And that's the other thing that I tried to instill in my children. So it wasn't necessarily a spoken thing with her where she said, hey, Mark, da-da-da-da-da. But what she did was make me a self-sufficient male. And that's something that I instill in both my children because, with the help of their mom, I want them to have someone in their life because I think that'll enrich their life and complete them and make them happy if they pick the right partner. But I don't want them to be beholden to anyone. I want them to be able to live completely independent if they have to.
Right.
The best example that jumps to mind is one of my good friends, who used to live very close by here, was an ER doctor. So his job was saving people's lives.
Right.
The guy couldn't cook. He'd never ironed a shirt in his life. He was completely deer in the headlights if his wife went away for a week or something.
Wow.
Like I would bring him over spaghetti sauce. And I literally did this one time. I brought him some pasta and I said, and he kind of looked at me like, it's not cooked.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm like,
hilarious.
okay, well, you boil in water. So to me, that's always been really important in life. The fact that you don't have to rely on anyone else, that you are self-sufficient.
You know, it's interesting. I've been reading Marcus Aurelius and some of the other Stoic philosophers. So Ryan Holiday's got a really nice approach in terms of making it more accessible. I got interested, so I started to read the original sources. And Marcus Aurelius has this really great line where it says, "You must be the agent of your own salvation."
You have to be.
You don't look for other people. So when you think back, so your mom raised 4 kids.
4 kids.
4 kids. Did she instill that sense of be the agent of your own salvation for all of you? Was that something that kind of went as a through line in terms of the family?
It's hard to say, Chris, because being the youngest, at 9 years old or 10 years old, my one sister was already out of the house.
Wow.
My other sister got married at 22. 20?
Okay.
So my contact with my upper siblings, Mary and Jane, my 2 sisters, not a lot, in growing up that I remember.
Sure.
My brother, I idolized. He was 4 years older than me. Everyone wants to be like their older brother. So him a little bit more, but I think, and I love my mother. This is not in any way, shape, or form taking away from the job that she did, but I don't think parenting was like something she thought about. I remember her from a very early age. She told me, you can't ever lie, cheat, or steal. I just remember those 3 words coming out of her.
It's great advice.
But it wasn't like she was super focused on I think, teaching us.
It's interesting. You just mentioned about idolizing your brother. So you're a young kid, sisters leave, you've got your mom. I don't think your dad is involved or engaged. Was he?
Birthday. He was the nice older man that brought me presents at my birthday.
Roger.
I call him Dad. He was 19 years older than my mother.
Oh.
So my mother's, and I'm going to get too sidetracked or go down a rabbit hole, but, it's pretty scandalous if you think about it, back in the 50s, 40, she would marry someone 19 years older of a different religion.
Right.
And then get divorced.
Yeah.
But my father had a problem with, as my mom says, with Jack Daniels.
Roger.
And she was fearful that he might do something to one of us or hurt someone.
Well, it's very brave of her because a lot of women would not have done that. They would have stayed in. So what I was curious about, though, with your brother is clearly as a young boy, they look for models of manhood, right? They look for older men to kind of see and to figure out how to actually be a man, what it actually means.
Sure.
Was your brother a model of manhood for you growing up?
My first one.
Okay.
Yeah, my first one.
Did he know that?
I don't know. It would be interesting to ask him now at this stage, because cohesively, the 4 of us are a lot closer now. Because my mom got the ball rolling by saying, gosh, it has to go maybe 10 years ago. I want to see my children. I want all my children together, and I want them to come. No girlfriends, no spouses, nothing. Just my 4 children. And we started doing that. And then when she had some medical things happen, we made sure that we were still doing that, at least, maybe biannually. So we talk a lot more now.
That's great.
We're a lot closer, and we share the things that are going on in our lives. But yeah, John, my brother, was definitely, because I felt like he could do anything. He was a great athlete. He was tough. He beat the crap out of me, but it was fast. That was pretty fast, so I could call him names and run away, and then he just got tired of chasing us. But yeah, super, super idolized him. And to this day, my love for my brother is just something that's, there. I've shared with you and some of the other guys that I've been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And he asked me the other day, because we talked about some of the metastasization and stuff, and he said, do you think you'll need something like bone marrow? And, my brother is just kind of like, he's a hillbilly. I love him to death, but he went to mechanic school. He can take any car and he can take it apart and put it back together. He buys cars that are, somebody wants the junk for $300 because they don't run or whatever, and he'll put some gas in the carburetor and he'll connect some stuff or whatever, and the car's running, and he'll put some work into it and sell it for $5,000. So he's very, adept with that kind of stuff, but he is kind of a hillbilly. But so for him to come out and make a statement like that, just really, kind of blew me away.
Yeah. Well, I think the love's still there. I don't think the love ever goes away,
Yeah.
And I think that as you get older, especially with siblings, you try to find ways to express that love.
Mm-hmm.
When you're younger, it's a little bit easier. If you're living together, you can rib and stuff like that. But as you get older and you're physically separated, there are moments when it's a little bit harder to make those gestures.
Sure.
And I think one of the things that I find interesting is, as you start looking for those models of manhood and as you start growing up, at least for me, because my folks split when I was 5, and I saw my dad about every other weekend, but my mom was really primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my brother left for college and it was just me and my mom, I was maybe 15 living in the house. I really needed this path of separation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I needed to figure out how to be a man of my own, not
mm-hmm.
just my mom's son, right? In terms of the connection with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever feel that way? Did you feel like there's a way that you had to kind of separate from your mom to be a man of your own instead of just a son?
Yeah, I think for me, it was just more of growing up and out. It sounds cruel, but I enjoy being around them as much as I did before.
Yeah.
And like Christmas would be, her husband, Charlie, mom, myself. And it was nice, but it was kind of boring at some point.
Sure.
So there was that, and it's maybe alluding to what you were talking about. I felt kind of this separation period around late high school through college.
Mm-hmm.
But then I felt this coming back together, afterwards. After it's almost like, you're a teenager, you're in early 20s, and it's not cool to be around your parents.
Right.
But then you mature, and it's like, I love these people, and I want to be around them.
Right.
My mother is about to turn 97. She just had a medical episode, and they placed her on hospice. But she's once again surprising us and rallying.
Mm-hmm.
Again.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and I joked the other day, we felt like there's been about 6 times where we've said our final goodbyes to our mom, and she just doesn't cease to amaze us.
Right. She rallies.
I did go through that period where, I felt I wanted to be separate, and maybe it's for that reason.
I think you have to. I think that there's a theory I can't prove,
mm-hmm.
but 100,000 years ago, you're a young boy. The tribe is entrusting you to pick up a spear or an arrow or a bow of some kind,
mm-hmm.
and you have to participate in the hunt. You have to participate. You have to separate from your mom or dad, or go with your dad or whatever. You've got to go hunt that animal.
Sure. Because
the tribe depends on young people learning how to do this.
Right.
If the young person does not know how to hunt and bring home an animal for the tribe will perish.
Right.
So there's these lessons that have to happen for these young men.
Sure.
And so we're in 2025. We don't have to go out to hunt a deer or an antelope or a woolly mammoth to survive. But I still think that there's a thing for young men to say, I've got to go out and figure out how to provide. I've got to figure out how I can be resilient and make it on my own. You said earlier that, you kind of instilled into your ethos that I've got to take care of myself. I've got to learn how to take care of myself instead of being dependent on somebody. Sure. I think that forces you to separate from your dependent, from the person you're dependent on.
Absolutely. And I think that goes with anything in life. You are dependent very early on, and you need to become independent. At work, you join a firm, like I'm in sales, you're dependent upon people to learn and whatever, then you have to become independent. And I think that's something that's just, in our DNA, to your point. I've done a lot of thinking with this diagnosis that I have, and although in my life I know that I have wonderful people around me, I have our whole group of men that I know care about me. I've got my family. I've got someone in my life. But when it comes right down to it, you are alone. And you at some point in your life, you have to come to grips with the fact that I'm the only one going through this.
Right.
Nobody else can feel exactly the way I feel. And maybe someone can have empathy for me, or, hey, what can I do? But they're going to wake up tomorrow and they're going to go on with their life, and you're still fighting this thing. And it's not, it didn't sadden me. It didn't make me feel, alone or outcast or anything like that. It was just a realization that I think I need to have for my next step in my journey mentally. So yeah, I agree. That's a long-winded way of saying I agree with you.
No, right. No, but that's the thing of it, and so I think what happens is that there are these lessons that you impart. So your son is 25.
Yeah.
Right on that cusp of young adulthood to the place kind of moving into not just young adulthood, still young adulthood, but getting to the place of expectations of independence, right? Yeah. 25, 26, suddenly you're in your later 20s,
right?
Not in your early 20s. So when you have conversations with him about your cancer, how does that go? How do you talk about that with him?
I don't know if I have that answer fully yet. We had a discussion about it just today.
Okay.
Because I went for an appointment today, and he had remembered from last week that I said I was going, for a follow-up appointment today, and that's one of the first things he asked. We're getting ready to go on a trip to Chile.
Oh wow!
We're going skiing on Monday.
Wonderful. And
this shows the independence of both my children. They both will call me out of the blue and say, "Oh," and Jordan did it the other day, my daughter. Hey, yeah, Dad. In September I'm going to see Oma in Holland. Then I'm going to go to Prague because Andrew said Prague was great. And then Andrew called me and said, "Hey, I'm going skiing in Santiago, Chile, actually just north of it in the mountains." He goes, "I want to use my Icon Pass again, and there's a resort there that takes it." And I'm like, "Oh, great. Who are you going with?" And he's like, "Well, none of my friends can go. And I know that Bonnie's birthday is that week, so you probably can't go." And I'm like, "Oh, hold on, Bubba."
Right.
I don't think Bonnie will care. And long story short, she obviously didn't, and we're going. So we had this conversation today. We're talking about transport. And he goes, "How did your appointment go?"
Yeah.
And I then and there had to make that decision. Am I completely transparent and truthful with him, or do I, shade it a little bit? Do I withhold a little bit of information? And so we had to talk about it, and he's okay.
Well, it's an interesting thing, and it's a hard thing because even though you're going through it alone, in the end, you're not going through it alone all by yourself, in the sense that
Sure.
Other people are going through this with you in their own way, right? Your friends and your family.
Sure.
There's a thing that happens, and I don't know. I guess a question that I would have for you is, when do you know what to disclose?
That's the hard thing. I wanted to tell my daughter, I was diagnosed last year.
Yeah.
So they know that. It's okay, great. This is gone, that's gone. Well, there's been this resurgence. And I wanted to wait until I could talk to Jordan face to face, which I had the opportunity to because I was in Wisconsin this past week. And then, Andrew I called because I wasn't going to see him anytime soon. And I think I owe it to them to be transparent and,
Yeah.
and tell them, hey, this is what's going on. It's not necessarily great, but your dad,
Hmm.
and we're gonna do we're gonna do everything we can.
Right.
And
Well, you crushed it
that's
before.
Yeah.
You crushed it before. So,
So it's hard with knowing when and how much, because because what I did is I put myself in my mom's position. If it happened to my mom, how would I feel when she told me?
right.
And I projected that on my kids and said, wow, I don't really want them to go through that.
Hmm.
But something happens, it gets worse. And then it's like, why didn't you tell us?
Right.
Why weren't you truthful or whatever? So I think you just have to be truthful and let the chips fall as they may. And,
Sure. So, it's interesting. You're one of the rare, not the rare, but you're one of the few men I know who have both a son and a daughter. And clearly there's a model of manhood you're trying to project for your son in terms of what does that mean to be an independent man, but also, be masculine, but also be able to cook and take care of yourself domestically, right?
Sure.
You're creating a model for your daughter, perhaps for a partner that she chooses that has the qualities that she would admire in you. Did you think about that as they were growing up? Did you think about the image you were portraying, or were you just kind of getting through each day? How did that work?
100%. The former.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, when I was still married, it was a partnership, and we decided how we were going to raise our kids. I think we did a great job together. When we separated, and Judy moved, I had to really consciously think of the model, to your point, what I was going to be for both my kids. And our separation, our split, was very, very hard for me, as you know. And I really consciously thought about how I was reacting to it. I knew that I could get really angry at the world. Why me? This isn't fair. And be a victim. And I just do not believe in victimhood. I think it's overused in our society. And I had to show my son a model of a man who was, forgiving, who would still, even though emotionally was going through something difficult, was still going to be a good person, was, still going to act with the best and integrity that you could. And I wanted to model for my daughter what a good man should look like, so that when she is out looking, that she looks for somebody that embodies those qualities.
It's wonderful. And also, too, what a man looks like, and how a man can recover and move through heartbreak and not be an a-hole, right?
Oh.
Right. To still
Sure.
be that loving presence, even though they're going through challenge, right?
Yeah, 100%. And overcoming adversity. I mean, there's so many lessons in it. And when I first started dating Chris, after the breakup, there were a lot of people that I got together with who were divorced or separate, whatever, and the stories just horrified me. Of they would have pull up at the gas station, a mutual location. The kids would get out of one vehicle and go into the other vehicle. And I took this one gal out, and I had tickets for something, and I said, "Hey, can you go?" And she's like, "Oh, it's not my weekend to have the kids, or it's my weekend to have the kids." And I'm like, "Well, can't you just call up and switch?" Because that's the way that we would do it. Judy and I would do it. Be like, "Hey, do you want the kids? I'm planning on going here." "Oh yeah, great." Because we both wanted to have them,
right?
And we kind of left it up to them.
Sure.
Hey, do you want to go to mom's, or anyway, not too deep into that, but the stories just absolutely shocked me. Of she was like, oh no, I couldn't. No, no, he'll get upset. I'm just like, man, things really go sideways.
They can.
When people, end a relationship, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because they're, it's like what they taught me in sales with Aflac. They're not saying no to you. They're saying no to this product, this opportunity,
situation.
and it's really the same in a relationship. It's, I'm just saying no to us. There's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
It's just not right for me. And you can do what you want, but you can't get angry with somebody over that. It's just, unless that person has done something bad, they've stolen money, they've cheated on you, they've had another life, or they're married to somebody else. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, because if the relationship isn't right for that person, forcing it isn't right. Right.
And it took one of my best friends to teach me that lesson.
Interesting.
Because I made the comment to him, she just ruined my life. We had the perfect marriage. And he said, whoa, you didn't have the perfect marriage. She wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
right.
And that's really was the moment that put me on
that turned the thinking around. That's so 100%, interesting that 100%. Because that is a really powerful phrase to say, she ruined my life, right. Putting all the power into her, ruining your life. Right. Whereas actuality, that wasn't true at all. Right. But that's how you think about it. And isn't that interesting how, the older I get, the more appreciative I am of mindset. Mm-hmm. Of how you think of something. Sure. And if you think about the same situation just in a different way, right, your whole experience of living changes. It's amazing. And it took this bump in the road for me, this horrible thing to happen to me, to, I think, honestly make me a better person. That's interesting. Because I've now realized that my happiness is completely up to me. When you stop being the victim, with the cancer diagnosis, my first thought wasn't why me, it was why not me? It happens. It happens to all kinds of folks. Right. So why am I special that it wouldn't happen? I mean, I with diet and exercise, I'm still questioning. Like, I know, for all the ways that you can live a healthy life, but that is fundamentally, that is a true world-changing, different question. Mm-hmm. Why me? Why not me? Yeah, and it's helped me, Chris, with every aspect of my life. Huh. I'm in sales. And sales can be brutal because people are telling you no. People say no? But it's taught me, getting through that adversity in my life has made me a champ at, doing what I do in my work life. Sure. And now having, someone in my life whose presence is super calming and has taught me more lessons about, how to think about things and how to have this mental paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. And, I think there's almost nothing you can't recover from if you just, correct, really, I don't want to say look at the bright side of the thing or try to find the silver lining. That sounds, hokey, but, they're being thankful, being grateful for the things that you have. Mm-hmm. Just running water. We were at a hotel in Wisconsin, and the storm came through and knocked out all the power. So for almost a day, we had no electricity, no air conditioning, no water. So what are you going to do? You're going to sit in your room and cry about it, or are you going to run to Piggly Wiggly and get gallons of water to flush the toilet? Right. There's nobody on earth that isn't going to experience adversity in their life. Correct. And I honestly think it's a good thing. And when circling back to the parenting, that's why I've always let my kids know there's a safety net. Right. But I want them to know it's not right here all the time, but
It's here.
Right.
I'll never let you fall to the ground, but you might sometimes fall.
Right. And there's lesson in falling. I think that our society in so many ways has forgotten how to embrace failure
Mhm.
and has forgotten how to not only accept failure, but to your point, take failure as the lesson that it gives you
Mhm.
so that you can become stronger the next time, or you can become stronger in a different situation.
Yeah.
The fear of having your kids fail to me is a fatal fear. Because they have to learn how to fail, because everyone at some point is going to fail in some way in life. It's just human nature. We'll be right back. You got me thinking though about, the calming presence now with your new partner.
Mhm.
And one of the things I think that also happens too is you pick up, we as people, we pick up different lessons from different people.
100%. 100%. I mean, I wanted my children to be like me in the sense that I never had a lot of steady relationships. I had one girlfriend for a year and a half before I met my wife,
Mhm.
and then got married. But all the other relationships were, short and transient, or, whatever label you want to stick on them. But I want to say almost everyone taught me something.
Mhm.
And that's why I kind of wanted my kids to kind of enjoy that. And when my daughter met this wonderful guy in high school and then started dating, went all through college, I thought they would get married. They ended up breaking up. She called me one day and said we broke up. I'm like, oh, honey, are you okay? She goes, yeah, I broke up with him, Dad. I'm not in love with him.
Right.
And I was like, wow. So having different people, you not only learn different things, you also learn what you don't want or need in your life.
Mm-hmm. And relationships that you don't want or need, because there are some relationships in your life that, through no harm, no foul, they're just not good for you.
Sure.
And there are some people
They're toxic in some way.
that are toxic, and maybe it's not they're toxic with everybody. You're not toxic to other people, but the chemistry of those two people just happens to be not the right chemistry, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not necessarily a personal thing. It just is how it is. And as you get older, recognizing that there are some folks that I want to spend more time with and some folks that I don't want to spend time with. And as I get older, I realize the people I don't want to spend time with, I'm not going to spend time with them.
Sure. Yeah, you have to be choosy, because time is really the one most precious thing that we all have.
Right.
And I'm not just saying that because of, illness or something, but I've always felt that way. And I've always been appreciative of people who spend time with me, not only in business, but personally, because it's the only thing we can't create more of.
Right.
We can get richer. We can, do a lot of different things, but you can't create more time for yourself and how you spend it. So I'm kind of like you, over spending time with people just to kind of be nice or whatever. I'm gonna choose how and where I spend my time. And we have this wonderful group of guys. There's 18 or 19 of us, but we all don't spend equal time with all of us.
Can't.
We've kind of selected who we want to spend our free time with for the most part. And some of us spend time. Some of them don't spend time because they're with their partner, and that's okay too. We can't judge that. But I personally like the balance of spending a lot of quality time with my partner, with Bonnie, and time with my friends.
Yeah.
And she does the same thing. So it's really, synergistically, it really works. I was just reading a text before we sat down to do this. I told her not to come barging in because we're creating the best podcast in history.
Yes.
But, sent me a text, hey, just to remind you, tomorrow night I'm going down to Renee's and spending overnight in the boat and,
All
I'll
right.
be back on Thursday to take you to your appointment. Is that okay? Of course it's okay. Just like, is it okay I go to Chile with my son for a week, even though it's your birthday? Yes.
Absolutely.
We can celebrate my birthday any
That's right.
day we want.
No, those are precious moments. And I think that, what I'm trying to figure out as I get older is that balance of time, like you talked about. My friend Michael Rosenthal was actually on this show, asked me after I hadn't seen him in 30 years.
Wow.
But one of my very first friends. So now technically he's my longest friend. I met him when I was in 4th grade. And he said, Chris, what's important to you? And I was like, oh, that's a great question. I said, my time. My time is what's really important to me, and how I spend it and what I do with it.
Sure.
Right. Now, with your mom at 97, she must think about time a lot. Do you guys talk about this?
We do. I wanted to really get inside her head because she's getting to the point where she's not going to remember stuff. So starting, last 5 years or so, I was extracting a lot of knowledge about her family history, things like that. Because I've told you the story, I believe, of my mother's grandfather ran against Woodrow Wilson for governor of New Jersey,
which is
mind blowing,
right? Which is the whims of fate if things had gone the other way. If he had won,
because he was very like Woodrow Wilson, he was very liberal, even though he was the Republican candidate. So anyway. But in the last few years, and I can talk to my mom, I feel about anything. And that's one of the things that I think she really treasures about our relationship. And she was here visiting, and I asked her, I said, Mom, we both know it's getting close to the end. Are you scared about death? Are you scared about your own mortality? And she said she really wasn't. She was just more curious about what comes next.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and we both have the same view, and maybe this makes me not a good Christian, but to me, I think it's going to be like going to sleep. You're not conscious that there's no more. You're not ever going to be conscious again. But I also have this Pollyanna part of me that wants to believe that I'll be able to communicate with my children,
sure,
and my friends, and that other people, will be able to do that with me.
Well, I think that one of the things I love about being human is the idea that we still control our own mind and we control how we think. To your point about independence, there's and when you said, there are times when you confront the fact that you are alone. So what I get hopeful about that is whatever happens next, it's your journey. There's no one else you share that with, right? Like when your mom is ready to move on, she's not sharing that with anyone. It's just hers alone.
Right.
It's her journey alone. So I think, well, whatever you think happens to you, well, maybe that's what happens to you.
Right.
Right. Maybe that's it.
Possibly. Yeah.
Right. We don't know. Yeah. And the fact that your mom, and I've had the great pleasure of meeting her. She's phenomenal, a phenomenal woman.
She's a champion.
Champion woman. The fact that her description of her feeling was curiosity. Really says a lot about who she is in terms of her open-mindedness, in terms of her fearlessness.
Yeah. She doesn't want to die alone. Yeah. And we made the commitment, all of my siblings and I. That's one of the reasons that she's living with my sister Mary now, who's a retired nurse. We didn't want her in a home where the end could come and no one's there.
Sure.
No one's around.
Sure.
So, we try to visit as much as we can. There was a plan for her to go down to my sister Jane's for her birthday, which is in November, and then Thanksgiving, and then stay for Christmas in the warm weather in Florida. And my one sister made a comment, well, that's off the table now. And my sister Jane said, no, it's not off the table. Not with Mom.
Yeah.
We just don't know. Maybe she can still make it.
Yeah.
And if she does, then I'm going to be the first one to buy a ticket to fly down there and see her. But I'll probably still go out and see her in Maryland.
Of course.
When I get back.
Yeah. No, you have to. Yeah. And, it's certainly because when I was with your mom and it was a great conversation with her, and just for the audience, she actually witnessed the destruction of the Hindenburg. Like that's like she was on the field in New Jersey watching it live, right?
Isn't that crazy?
Right. So I mean, this is this kind of woman. Like she's seen it all. And when I was talking with her and I was asking her just about things that she's learning and thinking about, right, it really struck me, Mark, that even in her 90s, she's still learning. Mm-hmm. Like she still has a curious mind and wants to learn. Mm-hmm. And it got me thinking about us. We're 50s and 60s. You're 64. You're still learning things now.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so I guess I would ask you, what are you learning now that's different than you learned back in your 40s and your 30s and your 20s? And what are some things that you're learning that your son Andrew then can look at you learning, because he's learning different things in his 20s?
Yeah. Emotional intelligence.
Okay.
I think is the biggest thing for
me.
And
what does that mean to you when you say that?
To me, it means that I'm learning more how to control my emotions. I'm learning more, and these big hills of adversity mm-hmm. that I've been dealt for no particular reason. The breakup with a person that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, the first cancer diagnosis, now basically the second. It's becoming what I call emotionally intelligent, so that it doesn't overwhelm me,
right?
So that I can deal with it and not be paralyzed by it. That I can still be the same person that I am and, mm-hmm. and have this great outlook on life.
Yeah.
And just deal with it and not feel sorry for myself.
Right.
Not go back to, why me, and what I call victimhood. I just think there's too much of that in our world, that people are the victim. They're looking for the easy way out.
Well, and also too, with, I don't discount traumas that people experience, yet there seems to be in every person an ability to create a space, or I shouldn't say the ability, but other people have done this. They create this space between maybe that trauma and how they respond, mm-hmm. right? And if one person can do it, it's within our brain's capabilities for everyone to do that. Mm-hmm. And if you think of yourself, receiving adversity, and like you said, not becoming victim to it or spinning your life around adversity, but instead recognizing that each day when you wake up, it is a brand new day. I know it's a cliche, but mm-hmm. it is the first day of the rest of your life whenever you wake up.
It is. It is. It's not a cliche, but none of us stop. We say it, but we never stop and really think about that. There's a really great book that I read years ago. It's called The Art of Happiness.
The Art of Happiness. Yeah. Okay.
Dalai Lama.
Right.
Wrote it. And, I can condense the whole book in almost like 2 sentences. It's just like, you choose whether to be happy or not. Mm-hmm. You're going to deal with adversity. Every day can't be great, because if you don't have any adversity, any bad stuff in your life, how do you appreciate the good stuff?
Right.
You can't. If, I forget what that movie was, black and white with Tobey Maguire, Wonderland or something like that, where they just lived in this town where everything's perfect.
Oh, the 1950s movie,
yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah, where everything's black and white, and then when they start, getting outside, they colorize. It's really kind of a cool movie, but we need that in our lives. And it's just life is a choice. Success in your job is a choice. In my job, 100%. In other jobs, there's going to be those isolated incidents where you're the assistant manager of a restaurant and the owner's son is the general manager, and you're not going anywhere. But especially for those people in a sales type of role, you choose whether or not to be successful.
Right.
It is a choice, and this isn't going to turn into a Tony Robbins seminar, but I honestly believe that. And when I'm asked to do trainings, that's the first thing that I teach new agents is, first of all, you have to make that choice,
Right.
and then there's only two things that are gonna define your success. One is your knowledge or your skill set, and the other one is your work ethic. And you can apply that to our lives as well, in the sense that I work on being happy. I
Right.
work on that's now my skill set, is not falling into that funk.
And you know what? I wonder, just like you pick up good habits of exercise or of eating well or of making the bed every morning,
Mm-hmm.
I
Which I do.
wonder
Which I do.
what you do, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
right? You're the guy that makes the bed every morning. It's
100%.
because you start the day with an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I actually think that if you practice the art of being happy, you get better at that,
Mhm.
just like with everything. And your mind and your brain actually changes.
Yeah.
I think so. I think you can change your brain that way.
Yeah. I found that my first bout of overcoming the adversity was, even after that split, I ended up having a year at work that was double what my first year was. I mean, literally, like the production, my income, everything. And I looked back on that, and I used that as a source. I used that as a source of, I can do it. I can do anything. And then you have some other accomplishment, and you use that, and you start to string these things together. And, at a different point in my life, with less emotional, whatever I said before, emotional awareness,
Mhm.
or whatever, a lot of this stuff would have buried me.
Right.
I would have been bitter and victimized and just angry at the world. And it's no fun to feel that way.
Right.
I mean, if nothing else, it becomes this selfishness within you. I want to feel good. I'm being selfish now. I want to feel good. So I'm going to make myself look at this situation differently and react to it differently,
Right.
and keep myself. And look, I'm certainly not perfect at it.
But it's
my-
practice, right? I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
it's a practice every day. I guarantee you that if you've never played guitar in your whole life, I guarantee you, if you sat down for an hour every day playing guitar, next year you'd be a better guitar player than you are today.
Sure.
Period. 100%. I also think that works in your mind. I think that if you consciously practice gratitude, you consciously practice, I'm going to figure out how to be happy today. You consciously practice the idea, this thing that happened to me really, really sucks, but that doesn't change me, right? I can still control how I view my day every day.
Right.
Right. The blessing of being human is that you have your own mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you, and one strategy that I do, and I don't do it all the time, but I'm going to now start to do it more, is I try to do 3 nice things a day.
Excellent.
And it can be as little as, how when you pull up to like an intersection, there's a person about to cross with their dog, and you're kind of like, well, you could go, or, you could wave them. It's just, even something as small as that, or opening a door for somebody or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you string those together, and it just, it brings, for me, just some inner feel good and inner peace.
Yeah, and it's the idea of doing something for others. I just did a workshop about strategic networking, right, at UCSD, and one of the things that they said, they said you have to tell them what your networking strategy is. And I was like, okay, I've got to really think about it because I've lived it, but I hadn't crystallized it, right?
Sure.
So then I was like, okay, I think I get it. You build a community, you make a community, not making transactions with people, right? It's about making community. It's like, don't seek to get, don't give to get. You give so you can give more. And that's why you give,
right?
And there's this sense of, there's a scarcity mentality or an abundance mentality. And I've learned as I've gotten older that I am better at habituating an abundance mentality if I think about it. If I think about how are my opportunities to give today? How are my opportunities to look at the world in a good way, right? There's a lot of the world that we can't control, right? I have absolutely no control over what's happening in the disaster that's been the Mideast my entire life, tariffs, climate change, global stuff. There are certain things I can do as a small way, but I can't control all that. So the question is, am I going to let that really dictate my perspective of the world?
Right.
No, I can still have that in my own mind. And as I've gotten older, I like that I can think about that. And I've had simply more time to practice it, right? When I'm 15 or 16 years old, I haven't had a lot of time to practice that.
And it's not on your radar.
So that's one thing that I like about being older. Yeah. I'll ask you, what do you like about your age now? You are extremely fit. At 64, you're
outside of cancer.
Outside of cancer. Outside of cancer. Right.
I always refer to myself as the healthiest cancer patient in the world.
But what do you like about your age now?
I think the perspective that I have on life. I and this is not meant to be morbid, but I said to Bonnie one time, and I think I've expressed it to my kids. I said, I don't want this to come off as doomsday or whatever. But I said, if I were to die tomorrow and I would be conscious of that death, I wouldn't have any regrets. Because I think I've had a fantastic life. Would I like to have 20, 25 more years? Absolutely. As long as I'm in good health and I'm the way I am now. For me, it's more about the quality of that life going forward. So I enjoy being at this point in this perspective because I've, with their mom and then a little bit without their mom, raised two great children who are off in the world, and I think that are adding to the world rather than detracting from the world. I love these two human beings that they've become. I've got great friends. I've got great family around me. I'm in a financial position where, finance is not an issue. It's not a stress for me in my life. I can retire from my job if I want to. I can walk away from it. I can still do it. I'm busy on the weekends, from gardening to reading to cooking. And I love my life right now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really blessed to have the different things that I have.
But I also think too that you made that happen. I mean, it's not like it's a lucky windfall.
It was a conscious, planned out, starting when I was 22 years old and investing $2,000 in an IRA.
Right.
And then every year after that.
Sure. And you consciously, were thinking about it, where I think actually your positive outlook on life and the decision to have a positive outlook on life has contributed to the success of your life.
I can't deny that. Because in sales, you'd come back to the office and you'd come back with some wins and people be like, oh, you're so lucky. But the people that work in my business, the people that work the hardest get the luckiest because they're out there more and they're running into people at the times where they should be running into them, where they're maybe looking for something or whatever. So you not only in job, but I think in life, you create your own luck.
Yeah. You make your own luck.
Because
Absolutely. No, and I'm lucky to have you as a friend,
I'm
and
lucky to have you
I
as well.
absolutely love you.
Thank you.
And I have a final question for
Sure.
you. Who is someone that you know that I don't know that I should meet?
How big a list do you want? I have a lot of wonderful people in my life that you should meet.
I'd love to meet them.
I don't know how many of my siblings you've met, but they're all wonderful in their own way. My best friend's whole family. So I have a second family. When I was a senior in high school, my mother remarried and moved away, and I didn't want to change schools my senior year, because I'd been in that school system since first grade.
Sure.
And I lived with my best friend's family.
Oh, wow.
They all consider me their brother. I consider them my siblings.
Mhm.
There's 2 boys and a girl, Mike, Mark, and Lauren. Mike is my age. Mark's a year younger. Lauren is 2 years younger than that. They're great people.
That's a really beautiful
yeah.
thing that happened. That's unusual.
Yeah. Meeting them and getting to know them. They would be great people in your life.
I'd love to meet him.
Yeah.
I love you, my friend.
You too, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, what a fantastic conversation with my friend Mark. What a fantastic man. What we call him the honey badger, right? What a strong, resilient man who's understanding that, look, shite happens in life to him, but to all of us have adversity. All of us have heartbreak or trauma or injury or illness, setbacks, disasters. But what do you do when that happens to you? How do you respond? How do you overcome? How do you make the most of that trauma and setback to make you stronger? Mark's an extraordinarily strong man, but he's also a loving man. He's also a grateful man. And maybe sometimes adversity, if you can get through it mentally every day, makes you stronger and better. Maybe the challenges we face in the world actually make us stronger. Maybe Nietzsche was right. Maybe what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So what do we learn from Mark? That you wake up every day and do the best that you can that day to be as good as you can, as grateful as you can, as loving as you can, and that you are in control of your day and how you live your life. That's what I learned from Mark. Very powerful, very inspiring, and he's inspiring. Man, I hope you were inspired by this conversation. I hope you join us too. Visit menfolkjourneys.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you too and to see how you are handling your days. Thank you so much for listening. Word Bit Falarid.